Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I want to begin today's episode with a simple observation. Most of us spend our lives preparing for beginnings. We prepare for our first day of school, our first game, our first job, our first season, our first opportunity. We celebrate beginnings because beginnings are exciting. They represent possibility, growth, and hope. They give us something to anticipate and something to work toward. Yet, there's still something interesting about life. While we spend enormous amounts of energy preparing for beginnings, very few people teach us how to handle endings. No one teaches athletes how to play their last game. No one teaches coaches how to run their last practice. No one teaches teachers how to teach their final class. No one teaches parents how to navigate the day their children no longer need them in the same way. No one teaches leaders how to leave positions they have occupied for years. We spend decades building our lives around seasons that eventually come to an end. And perhaps that's why endings can feel so difficult, because they are unusual, because they are inevitable. One of the most fascinating realities of life is that we rarely recognize the last time while it's happening. Think about that for a moment. Most people remember their first game. Few remember their last. Most people remember their first day. A few recognize their final day while they are living it. The reason is simple. Life rarely announces endings. Sometimes the last game feels like just another game. Sometimes the last conversation feels like just another conversation. Sometimes the final season feels like just another season. Then time passes, months pass, years pass, and suddenly we realize that a chapter quietly closed without us even noticing. I think this is one of the reasons ending affect us so deeply. They remind us that life is moving forward, whether we are ready or not. Athletes understand this reality better than most. Every athlete eventually plays their final game. For some, the ending arrives exactly as expected. A senior season concludes. A career reaches its natural conclusion. The athlete has time to prepare. For others, the ending arrives unexpectedly. An injury changes everything. A roster decision changes everything. A life circumstance changes everything. One day they are planning for the future, the next day the future looks completely different. The game continues, the team continues, the season continues, but their role has changed. What makes these moments difficult is not simply the loss of competition, it is the loss of familiarity. For years, life was organized around practices, workouts, teammates, schedules, goals, and routines. Then suddenly those things disappear, and a question begins to emerge. Who am I now? This is not merely an athletic question, it's a human question. Because teachers ask it, parents ask it, coaches ask it, leaders ask it, students ask it. Eventually, every person experiences a transition that forces them to reconsider who they are when a particular season ends. The challenge is that many people unknowingly attach their identity to a role. The athlete becomes basketball. The coach becomes coaching, the teacher becomes teaching, the leader becomes leadership. The role becomes so familiar that it slowly begins to define the person. Then the season changes and the people discover something important. Roles are temporary, titles are temporary, positions are temporary. Every season eventually ends. This is not bad news, it's reality. And reality invites an important question. If the role disappears, what remains? I believe this question sits at the heart of many transitions because people are often grieving more than the activity itself. They are grieving the version of themselves connected to that activity. The athlete misses competition, but they also miss the identity associated with competition. The coach misses the team, but they also miss the sense of purpose connected to the team. The leader misses, the teacher misses the classroom, but they also miss the role they carried for decades. The ending is not simply external, it is deeply personal. Yet I wonder if there is another way to think about endings. What if endings are not merely losses? What if endings are reminders? What if they remind us that the time is valuable? What if they remind us that seasons are gifts? Consider how differently we might approach life if we knew exactly when a season would end. How would you coach today if you knew this was your final season? How would you teach today if you knew this was your final class? And how would you parent today if you knew this stage of life would soon disappear? How would you treat your teammates, friends, your colleagues, your family? My suspicion is that most of us would become far more present. We would complain less, we would appreciate more, we would pay greater attention to the people around us, we would stop assuming there will always be another opportunity because one of the greatest illusions in life is the belief that there will always more time. More time to say thank you, more time to encourage someone, more time to repair a relationship, more time to appreciate a person, more time to be present. Then one day we discover the season has ended, and we wish we had paid closer attention while it was still here. Perhaps this is one of the hidden gifts of endings. They teach us gratitude. Without endings, we might never fully appreciate beginnings. Without endings, we might never recognize the value of a moment. And without endings, we might never understand the importance of presence. The very thing we fear may actually be helping us understand what matters most. Fate has profoundly influenced how I think about this reality. One of the lessons I continue learning is that life is lived in seasons. Some seasons are exciting, some are difficult, some are productive, some are painful, and some last longer than expected, others end sooner than we would like. Yet every season carries opportunities to grow, learn, serve, and become. Perhaps life is not measured by how long a season lasts. Perhaps it's measured by how faithfully we live within the season we are given. That perspective changes everything. Instead of desperately trying to hold on to a season that is ending, we begin asking what the season was trying to teach us. Instead of fearing change, we begin looking for purpose within change. Instead of defining ourselves by a role, we begin grounding ourselves in something deeper. Purpose survives when roles change. Character survives when seasons change. Fate survives when circumstances change. The scoreboard change. The lessons remain. The season changes. The growth remains. The role changes. The person remains. As I grow older, I find myself thinking less about achievements and more about moments. Less about outcomes and more about relationships. Less about success and more about significance. Because at the end of the day, very few people remember every score. Very few people remember every stats, every accomplishments. But people remember how they were treated. They remember who invested in them, who encouraged them, who cared about them. Perhaps those are the things that remain when the game ends. As we close today's episode, I want to leave you with one final question. Imagine you knew this season of your life would end tomorrow. How would you live today? How would you coach or teach? How would you lead? How would you love? How would you serve? Because one day, without realizing it, you will do these things for the last time. And the tragedy is not the ending comes. The tragedy is reaching the ending and realizing you were not fully present while the season was still unfolding. Thank you for joining me for episode 8 of Beyond the Scoreboard. Until next time, continue pursuing excellence, continue investing in people, and remember that some of life's most important lessons are found beyond the scoreboard.